Welcome to this year's Founders Day at the University of Georgia. We recognize this occasion not only to commemorate the founding of the University of Georgia, but to celebrate the birthplace of public higher education in America. It began here with the signing of the charter by Abraham Baldwin and others 230 years ago, actually tomorrow, in Savannah. Those founders established a firm foundation which has grown now into one of America's top 20 public institutions of higher education and the flagship campus of the state of Georgia. At the University of Georgia, we now have 17 schools and colleges, a new health sciences campus here in Athens, which houses our medical partnership, and extended campuses in Tifton, Griffin, Gwinnett, Washington, D.C., Oxford, Cortona, and Costa Rica. We have extension and service learning operations in every county in the state of Georgia. And after more than 200 years, our reach now touches virtually every place in the world. What is most important is that the university's impact emanates from our quest to teach, to serve, and to inquire into the nature of things. I have always appreciated that Founders Day at the University of Georgia is centered on a lecture from one of our most accomplished scholars. We're fortunate today to have my dear friend, Professor Paul Kurtz, filling that role. He and his lovely wife, Carol, have come back from Washington, D.C., where Paul is teaching in our Washington semester program, to be with us today. The response to Paul's lecture will be offered by Student Bar Association President Carey Miller from the law school. What I also appreciate about today's lecture is that all of you have been able to arrive here safely, and we hope that you'll be able to leave safely. As I stand here today, I remember last year's celebration almost did not take place. Many of you may recall that at this time last year, Athens welcomed in a cold front and 2 days of ice and snow that caused the university to close. In fact, we closed at the conclusion of last year's Founders Day lecture. But unlike those conditions last year, today's weather delivers more comfortable temperatures and some sunshine, which we believe makes this occasion even more appropriate. I'm pleased that all of you will be unhindered by the challenges of Mother Nature when you try to leave after this lecture. Today also gives us the opportunity to honor those who have given meritorious service to the University of Georgia. A year ago, the Emeritus scholars proposed the creation of a special recognition known as the President's Medal to be bestowed each Founders Day on individuals that are no longer employed at the University of Georgia, but have dedicated their lives to supporting students, championing the research enterprise, or engaging in public service on behalf of our community. The first medals were presented last year to Dr. Louise McBee and the late Dr. Tom Dyer. Earlier today, I was privileged to present this year's President's Medal to Dr. Gary Birch, who, as a professor in the School of Public and International Affairs, served the University of Georgia for many years, most recently as director of the Center for International Trade and Security before retiring in 2010. Dr. Birch served on the UGA faculty from 1969 to 2010. As a professor in the political science department, he became the founding director of the Center for International Trade and Security in 1987, and he served in that capacity for 23 years. As a teacher, Dr. Birch's talents and efforts earned him many of the university's highest teaching awards, including the Lothar Tresp Outstanding Honors Professor and the Sandy Beaver Teaching Professorship Award. Dr. Birch served as a UGA Foundation trustee from 1994 to 2004 and as a member of the University of Georgia Research Foundation Board from 1987 to 1997. He was the co-founder and co-director of the Delta Prize for Global Understanding, a UGA-based program funded by a $1 million gift from Delta Airlines that brought the likes of Desmond Tutu, Mikhail Gorbachev, and Nelson Mandela to the state of Georgia. You can learn more about Dr. Birch's extraordinary record in your printed program, but I did want to recognize Dr. Birch for earning this distinguished university recognition before you today at this special occasion. Gary, will you please stand so that we can recognize you? Before I conclude my remarks, I want to express my appreciation to the Emeritus Scholars for developing this special recognition. Thank you for your continued service to our university in so many ways. And to each of you in this audience today, I'm glad you've come to this lecture. I am sure that you're going to enjoy the program. Happy birthday to the University of Georgia. Thank you.
Good afternoon, and welcome to the 13th Annual Founders Day Lecture presented by the University of Georgia Alumni Association and the Emeritus Scholars. I am Meredith Gurley Johnson, Executive Director of the UGA Alumni Association. Thank you for joining us today to celebrate 230 years since the establishment of the University of Georgia as the nation's first state-chartered institute of higher education. First, please join me in a round of applause for our pre-lecture entertainer, piano player Jessica Pacheco. And I also thank you for attending today's lecture as we gather to celebrate a milestone anniversary for the University of Georgia and reflect on Abraham Baldwin's role in the birth of public higher education in the state and the nation. Baldwin believed that higher education was for everyone, not just those who could afford it, and that it was a public commodity that could do the most good if it were more accessible to the general population. When the charter was signed on January 27, 1785, it not only signaled the creation of a state institution of learning, but established a precedent for public higher education for the entire country, prompting other universities to follow suit. More than 10 years ago, the UGA Alumni Association sought to recognize the university's birthday in a way that would reflect the traditions upon which UGA was built. In coordination with the UGA Emeritus Scholars, the first Founders Day lecture was held in 2002. Last year, the university designated a new signature lecture series to highlight several campus talks throughout the year. And we're proud that the annual Founders Day lecture, which celebrates a significant milestone in the university's history, receives this prestigious designation. At this time, I would like to recognize the Emeritus Scholars, a group of esteemed faculty members who continue to serve the University of Georgia. Please stand so we may recognize you. And of course, students are the pride and joy of UGA, and Founders Day would not be complete without their involvement. Therefore, at this time, I invite Student Alumni Council President Mark Rush to the podium to introduce today's keynote speaker.
Good afternoon. I'm Mark Rush, 3-year member and current president of the Student Alumni Council. I'm honored to stand here before such an impressive group of individuals to help celebrate the university's 230th anniversary. Without further ado, allow me to introduce today's speaker, Paul M. Kurtz, UGA School of Law J. Alton Hosch Professor of Law and Associate Dean Emeritus. Professor Kurtz dedicated nearly 40 years of his life to the University of Georgia, and we are honored to have him here with us today. Professor Kurtz arrived at UGA in 1975 as a faculty member in the UGA School of Law, where he specialized in criminal and family law. He served as the law school's associate dean from 1991 until his retirement in 2013, and was named the J. Alton Hosch Professor of Law in 1994. At the time of his retirement, he was the longest-serving associate dean in American law schools. Other highlights and accomplishments from Professor Kurtz's career include serving as a senior foundation fellow, a role in which he mentored UGA's most outstanding undergraduate scholars, receiving the UGA School of Law Alumni Association's Distinguished Scroll Award in 2012, serving 2 terms on the board of the Georgia Athletic Association, chairing the University Council Executive Committee, being elected to membership in the American Law Institute, serving as reporter for the Georgia Supreme Court Commission on Indigent Defense, and serving since 2001 as a representative of the state of Georgia on the Uniform Law Commission. We are proud of the work that Professor Kurtz has accomplished in the name of the University of Georgia, and are forever grateful to his service and dedication. Please join me in welcoming Professor Paul M. Kurtz.
Thank you, Mark, for that gracious introduction. I hesitate to nitpick, but you neglected to mention one thing. In 1975, when I joined this faculty, I was 7 years old. My lengthy journey to this podium began around the kitchen table in my childhood home in semi-rural New York in the spring of 1964, over 50 years ago. The topic of that evening's discussion with my mother was where I would attend college. In addition to several New York area schools, one Southern school had invited me to enroll. Ever the dutiful son, I sought her advice, and she suggested that I head south. She explained that this would provide an adventure on which I would experience places and things I had never seen and be around people unlike any of those I knew growing up. I remember her stressing that this would be a college life different from that of any of my high school friends, one which I could not duplicate in the other schools to which I had been accepted. So, having never been farther south than Washington, D.C., I left on what turned out to be a 24-hour bus ride. That's the topic of a different talk. By myself to attend college 900 miles away from home on a campus I had never seen. Looking back at this in 2015, it is mystifying to me that I insisted on riding that bus instead of accepting the plane ticket which had been offered to me by my parents. All I can say in my defense is that it seemed like a good idea at the time. Speaking of my parents of blessed memory, what indeed were they thinking in allowing me to head out from the Port Authority bus terminal on my own that sweltering September morning? I never had the courage to ask. During her life, my late mother was the source of much excellent advice, but her suggestion to go south for college clearly was the best she ever provided. It clearly was literally life-changing. I am fairly confident, though, that as the ensuing chapters of my life played out, from time to time she must have regretted that conversation in 1964. You see, the assumption underlying her guidance was that after finishing college and having grown and learned and perhaps even changed, I would return home to New York. And of course, that never happened. While in college, I fell in love with learning, and then I fell in love with a woman, which was followed by law school, which led to a judicial clerkship and then to academia as a life. And virtually all of that happened far below the Mason-Dixon line. That young woman who I made reference to, that I fell in love with, I had her come today. She had to come from a long way away. A couple of weeks from now will be the 46th anniversary of our first date, and I want her to stand to be recognized so I can demonstrate how easy it was for me to fall in love at first sight. I know most of you know her, but her name is Kurtz, the sweetest, most patient, and tolerant person that I know. And I'd also like to introduce our son and his wife, Benji and Claire Kurtz. So back to the story. So I stand before you today, having spent most of my life in Athens, Georgia, and virtually all of my post-high school life in the South. I have decided that the time has come for an accounting of the results of that adventure which began more than half a century ago. I'm delighted to have been given the opportunity to use this occasion to report what I have learned and how things have gone. It is somehow fitting, I think, that I give this particular report on the day when we honor Abraham Baldwin, the Connecticut Yankee who founded our university. It would be hard for me to convey how much I wish my mother were here today to hear me this afternoon, but I'm fairly confident that before her death 7 years ago, she had a fairly complete understanding of what her oldest child had experienced during his time away from home. Before I give my report, let's address some clarifications and explanations. First, despite the rumors you may have heard and my less than youthful appearance, I was not actually invited to give this lecture by Abraham Baldwin himself. While he was my friend, he was not a big fan of my sense of humor, much like the current president. While on the subject of Baldwin, I just want to note that though he did hire me, I was not actually a faculty member when the charter was issued in 1785, or even in 1801 when classes began. Second, the New York Yankee in the title of my talk most emphatically does not refer to any baseball team. While I did root for the pinstripe team avidly in my youth, my allegiance to them has vanished along with my youth. The phrase now simply indicates the city and state of my birth. Third, I don't really believe I am behind enemy lines. While neither I nor anybody who knows me would consider me to have become a Southerner, I believe that over the years, Dixie and I have reached an understanding. I also want you to know how deeply honored I am to follow in the distinguished footsteps of such friends and former colleagues on the faculty as Tom Dyer, Cliff Pinnell, Jean Barsanti, Jim Cobb, Betty Jean Craig, Gary Birch, Locke Johnson, Ron Carlson, and my former student, Dorinda Dahlmeyer. I can assure you that when I arrived on this gorgeous campus in the summer of 1975, as Henry Wadsworth Longfellow wrote in a slightly different context, hardly a man is now alive. I had no thought that one day I would deliver this kind of address on this kind of occasion to such a distinguished audience. I was just hoping to find a place where I could enjoy my work, raise a family, and live a good life, whether it was a short-term or a long-term assignment. Needless to say, I can report enthusiastically and honestly that all three of those goals have been achieved in spades. As in any relationship, not everything is perfect between the South and me. Of course, there are things that I very much admire. There are things I have come to accept over time. There are things which remain odd and or funny to me, and there are things I'm not terribly fond of. Let's begin with the positive. Let's begin with the things I like. I suppose the thing I like most about the South, and it may sound strange to talk about this on this particular day, but is the warmth of the South. Now, of course, I'm not referring to the climate, though it's not bad at all to live in a part of the country in which at least 8 or 9 months in any year contain what I think we all would describe as convertible weather. It is a place where snow removal is usually accomplished before lunchtime by the sun rather than by shoveling. It's what I have often called, and many of you have probably heard me say this, I often call this the God plan of snow removal. He brought it, and he'll figure out a way to get rid of it. It's a place where a picnic on the day after Thanksgiving is often possible. But obviously, the far more important kind of warmth, which I admire most about the South, is reflected in its people. By and large, Southerners simply are nice. They care about their families, they care about their neighbors, they care about their country, they care about their cities and towns, and most relevant on Founders Day, they care about their state universities. While I do not want to be understood to say Yankees don't care about these things, in my experience, Southerners are brought up to be welcoming in ways very different from many of those in other parts of the country. Family is especially important to Southerners. I've noticed over the years that normally it doesn't take a Southerner more than a few minutes in a conversation with a new acquaintance for a question to be posed about one's family. That, of course, leads to information about his or her family, which often leads to the happy discovery of a pre-existing link between the two individuals. No, not that kind. This is Georgia, not Alabama. Whoa. That really wasn't in the script, I can assure you. It was because of your response, not mine. No. I do have a governor, you see. A favorite Southern phrase, which reflects both on family and the warmth of the South, I came across several years ago when I first heard one Southerner inquire of another, "Where do your people bury?" Additionally, I would wager there are more family reunions held in one of the summer months in Georgia than in all of New England and the Middle Atlantic states in an entire year. In addition to warmth, most Southerners are extremely respectful to others, at least most of the time. Everything stops for a funeral procession, whether it's an extremely important public official, a neighbor down the street, or somebody you never met. Doors are held open for total strangers. Hellos are exchanged on the street in passing, and it's always quite acceptable, as I'm sure you know, to inquire, "How's your mom and them?" Manners are taught, learned, and utilized. Personally, I used to think that standing when an elder entered a room was a bit much, but the more senior I get, the more fond I become of the practice. Another Southern tick that I initially understood as being mannerly and sweet was the addition of "bless his or her heart" at either the end or the beginning of a sentence. Of course, over time it became very clear that this was merely a restrained, polite-sounding means of saying "the crazy fool" or something similar. Needless to say, my Yankee friends have much more explicit ways of expressing that opinion, not finding it necessary to couch that thought in a sweetly murmured euphemism. Closely related to the respect and kindness shown by Southerners is their humility. Unlike many people I know from other parts of the country, a Southerner rarely enters a room assuming that he or she is the smartest one there, and that everybody is desperate to hear the opinion of the newcomer on all matters, large and small. And my list of favorite Southern things would not be complete if I failed to mention the cuisine. Grits, pecan pies, homemade ice cream, apple fritters, cornbread, biscuits, Krispy Kreme donuts, moon pies, Google clusters, anything fried, especially chicken and okra, and anything barbecued, except Bill Bracewell, goat. And when I say barbecued, I mean the real kind, not the stuff done on a grill in the backyard for half an hour. And I cannot leave my list of favorite Southern things without mentioning country music. I'm not talking about those songs like My Son Calls Another Man Daddy, that's a real song. Or Just How Married Are You, Darling? Or you done tore out my heart and stomped that sucker flat. Those cute titles are fun to make fun of, for sure. I refer here to classics like Eddie Arnold's Make the World Go Away, the Statler Brothers' Class of '57, Barbara Mandrell's I Was Country When Country Wasn't Cool, Loretta Lynn's Coal Miner's Daughter, the many, many versions, of course, of Georgia on My Mind, most notably those by Willie Nelson and Ray Charles, and the best country music song ever written. What do you think? Greg Sowell, what do you think? What's that? That's it. By George Jones. This music tells real stories about real people, their jobs, their hopes and dreams, and often about love, both lost and found. Over the years, some things which I initially found to be very strange or even peculiar, I have come to accept. For example, as you all undoubtedly are aware, it is terribly important in the South, when ordering iced tea, to make clear if sweet tea is not your cup of tea. I learned that lesson very early in our time in Athens, at the Holiday Inn, about 200 yards behind me. When I ordered lunch, I ordered an iced tea and automatically put in 2 packages of sweetener. Let me assure you, and some of you probably know this, sweetening sweet tea is really not fun. It hurts. Another item in this category is the fact that children are taught to address their parents' friends as Mr. Paul and Ms. Carol, rather than simply Paul and Carol. This habit is retained by the children well into adulthood, often. When I was first addressed in that manner, I was immediately taken back, and only the more mature of you will get this reference, to Romper Room in 1950s television. For those of you too young to understand or remember, television was where entertainment was found before the days of Facebook and streaming videos and Instagram and Twitter and Snapchat and such. And no, it wasn't high def, and it wasn't even in color. Well, actually, it was in 2 colors, black and white. There are still some things which I find very strange, a mere 50 years after first arriving in the South. Things like boiled peanuts. Pimento cheese. Sorry. I told you I wasn't a Southerner. A bag of Planters peanuts put into an RC Cola. Vegetables cooked for a week. Reference to all kinds of soda, no matter what they say on the label, as Coke. And Crystal burgers. When I first showed up at a Crystal as a freshman in college, each of the burgers, and I'll put those in quotes, cost a dime, or 12 cents maybe. The guy ahead of me online, or in line, depending on where you are, ordered a dozen. When I called home that Sunday, I related the experience to my parents and told them I was sure I had moved to another country. These things I still don't understand or get. I also still find it hard to understand the fact that it goes unnoticed, or at least unmentioned, that the famous UGA fight song, Glory, Glory to Old Georgia, is sung to the tune of the Battle Hymn of the Republic. What's with that? That was a camp song, for those of you not familiar with this, that was a camp song of the Union Army during what is interestingly called the War of Northern Aggression, or the War for Southern Independence, or for true traditionalists and old-timers, simply the WOA. It's as if dog fans think by not talking about that or acknowledging that fact, then it won't be true. Maybe Jim Cobb, a master teacher and former Founders Day lecturer, can explain that to me the next time he takes me to lunch. By the way, the next time he takes me to lunch will be the first time. Is Jim here? I didn't see him. Well, that's what he gets. Likewise, I remain mystified that college football games require young women to dress like they're going to the prom or a bar, and young men to carry a flask while wearing a jacket, a tie, shorts, and sometimes sandals. I showed up for my first college football game as a college freshman in jeans and a sweatshirt, and haven't gotten over the embarrassment yet. Finally, there is, I'm afraid, a short list of things of which I'm not terribly fond. These things include Greek weekends, which begin on Wednesday. As a longtime homeowner who lives within shouting distance, or more accurately, amplification distance, of Millage Avenue, I've been victim of noise pollution in the same decibel range as occurs in those neighborhoods under flight paths to major metropolitan airports. The Southern obsession with guns, full-page ads in the newspaper for various types of firearms, the giving away of a gun as a lottery prize, and legislators seriously considering whether guns would be appropriate on campuses, in churches, in bars. Augusts in the South. People I grew up with think humidity of 70 or 80% is absolutely unbearable. Down here, as we all can attest, that is simply a rather pleasant day in May. And for me, at least, the politics of this region is on the list of things I really am not terribly fond of. Each Thanksgiving, I reflect how grateful I am for living in a very blue city in a very red state. The mention of our very blue city reminds me that I forgot the two most important things I have come to admire about the South: our beautiful, accomplished university and the wonderful town in which it is the main attraction. The University of Georgia is merely the best part of the best town in Georgia. Whether one counts from the granting of the charter in 1785 or from 1801 when classes began about 100 yards from where I am standing now, our university has been the center of higher education in this state for well over 2 centuries. The last 40 of those years have seen a gigantic step forward on this campus. In 1975, the year of my arrival, there were 13 schools and colleges. Since then, 4 new schools and colleges, plus the medical partnership with Georgia Regents University, have been established. The university welcomed about 2,500 freshmen in 1975 and 5,258 last fall. In 1975, 85% of those who applied for admission were accepted. Last fall, barely half of the applicants were accepted. In 1975, the average SAT score was 994. In 2013, it was 1,249. Total enrollment has gone from about 10,400 to over 34,000. Enrollment in graduate programs has jumped from about 4,700 to 8,200. Doctoral degrees conferred went from 238 to 440. In 1980, the university was named as one of only 30 schools in the country to be designated as a Sea Grant institution to accompany its status as the original land-grant institution, the University of North Carolina to the contrary notwithstanding. In all the years before 1975, no UGA graduates had clerked for the United States Supreme Court. Since then, 10 of our law school graduates have done so. In the last 20 years, the university has produced 8 Rhodes Scholars, 5 Marshall Scholars, 12 Truman Scholars, 46 Goldwater Scholars, and in the last 4 years, 49 of our students have been offered Fulbright grants. Regarding Rhodes Scholarships across history, in its history, UGA students have won 23 Rhodes Scholarships. Only 1 fewer than the University of California at Berkeley, and 2 fewer than Michigan, and more than UCLA, Pennsylvania, Emory, Davidson, NYU, Notre Dame, not to mention almost twice as many as that school, alleged university, in Gainesville, Florida. And George Ray, I'm sorry to point out, almost 5 times as many as the North Avenue Trade School. All this has happened at a university which the Peace Corps has ranked 17th in the country among universities and colleges producing volunteers, one which Kiplinger's magazine recently ranked as the 10th best value in public higher education in the country, and U.S. News ranks as the 20th best public university in the country. I'm exceedingly proud of being a very small part of this maturing of this wonderful institution of higher learning. With its antebellum homes, rich history, active cultural life, and myriad of nonprofit organizations dedicated to dealing with issues ranging from poverty to sexual assault to illiteracy to family violence, Athens is the place to which all Georgians gravitate, especially those who have attended school here. We don't have one art center, we have 2. We have the State Botanical Garden, the tree that owns itself, the State Art Museum, a public radio station, at least 2 farmers markets, a vibrant downtown, wonderful restaurants, the Georgia Public Schools Superintendent of the Year, a world-famous music scene, community theater, and more. No place in Georgia is more exciting than Athens on one of those football Saturdays in the fall. And on the other hand, no place anywhere is better to contemplate important ideas than Athens on a quiet fall or winter afternoon at Sandy Creek or the North Campus on a Sunday. On those occasions when I randomly meet former students who are in town for various reasons very soon in the conversation, after the pleasantries have been dispensed with, they get a certain look on their face. Their eyes narrow, and it is very clear that they are thinking. And I think I know exactly what they're thinking. They're thinking to themselves, speaking to me in their minds, "You lucky son of a gun. I only get to Athens every once in a while, to see a game, to appear in court, to interview students, to attend a conference. But you get to live here the whole year and can enjoy this town and this campus every single day." I usually tell them that I think they're thinking that, and I tell them that I have appreciated every day of my life on this campus, thinking that that will somehow mollify them. But it doesn't. Athens, Georgia, the perfect college town. I've seen Chapel Hill, I've seen Ann Arbor. They're nice, but they're not Athens. Very few of the people I grew up with even understand the nature of a college town and the advantages it offers. Bless their hearts. I see my wife looking at my watch. In summary, and this indeed is the summary, my half-century foray below the Mason-Dixon line has been nothing more and nothing less than the time of my life. Thank you.
Professor Kurtz, thank you for those excellent remarks. At this time, I'd like to introduce today's student responder, Carey Miller. Hailing from Gainesville, Georgia, Carey Miller is a third-year UGA School of Law student, a double dog, and president of the Student Bar Association. During his first 2 years in law school, Miller served as president of the class of 2015. In addition, he is a member of Georgia Law's Moot Court Board and an executive board member of the Equal Justice Foundation. Miller will graduate in May with plans to pursue a career in civil litigation. Please join me in welcoming Carey Miller.
Good afternoon. Now, I want to start off by saying that I hope the Alumni Association is not privy to some information I am not, because I noticed on here I'm graduating in 2016, and as much as I love this place, I don't know if I could handle another year of law school. I want to start by saying how honored I am to be here, to respond to Dean Kurtz, and to address you all today on the 230th anniversary of this great institution. I want to thank Dean Kurtz for inviting me to address you all, and also my family and friends in attendance to support me. Now, I have to say up front that I will not be able to keep pace with Dean Kurtz's jokes, but I do wish to offer a response to a few of his topics, share my thoughts on what this great university means to a native Georgian, and add some comments on this university's future. And now I will also say it's tempting being after Dean Kurtz. Normally in law school it works so that Dean Kurtz gets the smart remarks after I make an odd comment, so I get to flip the script a little here. In preparing for this response, it came to my attention that rarely, if ever, has the student respondent been a graduate or professional student. Though I'm now a third-year law student, it was not too long ago, or at least I do not believe it was too long ago, that I was living in room 712 in Russell Hall as a bright-eyed freshman undergraduate. It was a much simpler time then, back when black jerseys for the football team didn't necessarily mean an insurmountable hurdle. Back during a time when fraternity houses dotted Lumpkin Street and Gumby's Pizza operated next door to the dormitory. Now, I say this to emphasize that though many of the thoughts I share with you all today are given through the lens of a law student, this view is not without intimate knowledge of the larger undergraduate student body as well. Now, I also view this university through a different lens than Professor Kurtz. I'm not behind enemy lines, so to speak, although he acknowledged neither is he. Quite the opposite, actually. I'm a native Georgian from just up Highway 129 in Chestnut Mountain, Georgia, a small community outside of Gainesville. The good Gainesville, that is, not Gainesville, Florida. And I'm a third-generation Georgia Bulldog, after my grandfather and my mother who are here in attendance today. Could you please raise your hands? Now, I am also a hunting, mostly red voting, wear khakis to the football game, Georgian through and through. This is, of course, why Dean Kurtz and I have fostered such a great professional relationship. Or at least I'm led to believe that he likes me somewhat. And I believe I will let some of the remarks lie, except to say that there is a certain term of art here in the South for what your lecture described, and those who might not know you as well might say this, but a carpetbagger. I kid.
I've reserved 2 minutes for rebuttal.
All joking aside, as evidenced by Dean Kurtz's fantastic country music selection, which I know my grandfather appreciated, and how much he has contributed to the university and to the law school that I now attend, just like Abraham Baldwin, he is no carpetbagger. I say that kidding, although bless your heart, Dean Kurtz, if you haven't tried peanuts and a Coke, if you don't like pimento cheese, you are missing out on some great things. No, Dean Kurtz has just wisely realized that there are few places in this world comparable to Athens and comparable to the University of Georgia. And I believe our sharing the stage today is illustrative of the value that such differing backgrounds brings to this university. I am a product of this state's public education system, also unlike Dean Kurtz, from kindergarten all the way through my Juris Doctor. But again, we are both indicative of a focal point of this university, providing educational opportunity to Georgians, those from both Forsyth County, Georgia, and Forsyth, Georgia, which are not in the same place. Those from Forsyth County, North Carolina, and also from Forsyth Street in Lower Manhattan. As a Georgian, though, I am certainly cognizant of what this university means to our state. It means $2 billion in local economic impact. It means a place for Georgians to remain here and for others to seek to come here to experience what UGA has to offer. It means wonderful leaders who have had such an impact on our state and our region and our country, from Crawford Long to George Peabody, all the way through to Richard B. Russell, people who have had such an impact on our country. and it provides an education that is on par with any institution at this country at an incredible value. And as Ms. Johnson noted earlier, and that Abraham Baldwin recognized the importance of access to higher public education for all students. And ensuring access to this great university for students from this variety of backgrounds is of the utmost importance. It is no secret the wonders that the Hope Scholarship has done to ease access to higher education for Georgians. But this university must be mindful of yet another well-known fact, one that jeopardizes institutions in this unique position as this university is: the rising costs of higher education. By way of example, when I was a freshman here at the University of Georgia during the 2008 and 2009 school year, undergraduate tuition and fees for that academic year totaled $6,030 for in-state students and $22,000 for out-of-state students. I was quite pleased to have that rate for all 4 years when I was an undergraduate, and it provided an opportunity for me to attend the school that I had dreams of attending. This year, those numbers are $10,836 for in-state and $29,046 for out-of-state students. The cost of attending the law school here at the university has also risen dramatically. In those same years, the cost went from $13,000 for residents and $29,000 for non-residents to $18,000 and $38,000 respectively. Of course, I certainly recognize that this did not happen in a vacuum. State funding of this university took a major hit during the recession, and the university was forced to fill that gap in any way possible by taking cuts that hurt students, hurt faculty, and hurt staff. However, it also did not occur only in response to the recession. Now, I mentioned this not to lambast increases in education costs at UGA here alone. This university is certainly not alone. And as Dean Kurtz mentioned, the university and its law school are consistently recognized as having such value in higher education, and rightfully so. But I do wish to emphasize that with an improving economy, and in turn hopefully improving state support, this university must be mindful to balance the tuition and fees with maintaining that value for students. Which leads me to my next point of emphasis today, the ever-shifting higher education model. In legal education, the new focus seems to be on developing practice-ready graduates. Now, as most of the law professors here today and any attorneys here might recognize, whether a practice-ready law student can ever occur right out of law school, I'm not so sure. But what is valuable is the underlying goal, emphasizing practical skills during students' education by employing new experiential learning methods. Now, the moniker of practice ready may be unique to legal education, but the idea of this sort of student experience is applicable to the wider university. In that regard, I cannot tell you how thrilled I was to hear of President Morehead speak of this initiative in the State of the University address. These experiential opportunities allow students to bridge the gap and apply the things that they learned in classrooms here in Athens to the workplace elsewhere in a variety of careers, from economics, law, biology, pharmacology, and many other studies. As both an undergraduate and a law student, I sought out and enjoyed those types of learning environments through jobs and internships in courthouses, nonprofit organizations, and the Carl Vinson Institute here at UGA. These experiences allowed me to do this, to apply what I learned in the classroom. Working to further incorporate these experiential learning programs into the overall educational experience is something that would provide an excellent benefit to students and is a challenge that this institution will have to grapple with. Because let's face it, this wonderful town of Athens is certainly an asset, but it can also lead to hurdles in placing students in experiential programs. This university has done a tremendous job in expanding study abroad programs and others like the semester in Washington, which Dean Kurtz is participating in this semester. And I think the lessons learned through those programs will prove beneficial in developing new opportunities. The next step is simply furthering this type of learning. The final point I would like to emphasize today is improving communication within the university community. I asked the faculty and staff in attendance today to open those lines of communication by mentoring their students, seeking to help guide them during this point in their lives. This is a difficult task in such a large university, but is one that is also necessary in such a large university. I personally have seen the benefits of such a mentoring relationship with faculty. Dr. Sylvia Hutchinson went out of her way to get to know her freshman seminar students, and her guidance and counsel has made an indelible impact on my academic career. I did not enter this university as a foundation fellow, not as an honor college graduate, and not as a Ramsey Scholar. I am a Georgian who, like many others at this university, are more than eager to accept the challenges the university has to offer and excited to begin here in Athens. I also implore administrators here to seek dialogue with students when changing policies, adjusting rates, and implementing initiatives like the Experiential Learning Program. I certainly acknowledge that this student sentiment can be a fickle beast, but something that may ultimately be a mundane and insignificant change becomes a point of contention when the reasoning for that change and the process for implementing that change is not communicated to the student body. Finally, to the students in attendance today, I challenge you to seek out the faculty and staff, to get to know them on a more personal level. They provide a wealth of knowledge and wisdom that can improve your experience here at UGA, and they are eager to help their students. And I also challenge you to pour your heart into this university, working to make it better. You will certainly receive a beneficial return from that endeavor. Now, I want to close by saying how much I love this place. I thank God for the beauty of this campus, the wonder of this city, and the fact that I have the opportunity to be just a little part of this university's story, to leave it just a little bit better than where I found it. I cannot wait until I can finally walk under the arch again in May. I've only done so once since graduating. I figure it's better safe than sorry. But I could, simply put, I could not be prouder than to be a Georgia Bulldog. I also want to close with one final challenge to the university, a challenge that emanates from a statement of the late former Governor Carl Sanders, something that is inscribed on the wall of the law school just down the quad. Governor Sanders stated that the people of Georgia want and deserve nothing short of the best. The University of Georgia School of Law is therefore to be one of such excellence that no citizen of Georgia need ever leave the state because a superior legal education is available elsewhere. As an undergraduate, before they closed in the courtyard of the law school, I walked past this inscription on the wall several days a week over my entire time here at the university. And I have to say I have found that that goal has been accomplished in part, but that striving towards that goal requires continued focus. And I believe this statement is applicable to the University of Georgia as a whole as well. The people of Georgia do deserve the best, and the University of Georgia should therefore strive to be the best, such that no Georgian need leave this state for a superior and accessible education, and to strive for the best such that those around the country would seek to become Georgia Bulldogs because of this university's extraordinary value, its exceptional experiential learning opportunities, and its incomparable atmosphere between students, faculty, staff, and administrators. Thank you again for giving me the opportunity to speak today, and go Dogs.
Thank you, Carey, for being with us and representing the high-caliber students who attend the University of Georgia. And of course, thank you again, Professor Kurtz. At this time, I would like to present our distinguished speakers with gifts on behalf of the UGA Alumni Association. Professor Kurtz, we've placed a Book of Honor, Wit and Wisdom of Georgia Law, in the UGA library in your name. And Carey, please enjoy this gift basket of items perfect for a 2015 double dog. And I want to mention that today's lecture is part of a week-long celebration of 230 years in the life of this great institution. Not only is the Student Alumni Association hosting daily events all week long for students, but a number of UGA alumni chapter leaders across the country are wishing UGA a happy birthday. So if you're the social media kind, I invite you to use hashtag UGA turns 230 and join in the conversation to celebrate. The Richard B. Russell Building Special Collections Libraries will display the UGA Charter today and tomorrow, and if you're available and interested in viewing that important piece of history, I encourage you to go down and take a look at it. Thank you for your support of the University of Georgia and the UGA Alumni Association, and we look forward to seeing you on another beautiful day just like today next year as we celebrate 231. Have a wonderful afternoon.